This will be an informational session to where we're going to give you a lot of information, and hopefully we can get some comments from you as well. So before we get started, I want to introduce two people that are going to be working with us on this project. First is Robin Colosimo, Deputy Assistant Secretary for the Army Project Planning and Policy Review, and also Colonel Jeremiah Gibson, the Commander of the Vicksburg District. Now, these public meetings are a critical part of the NEPA process. This is where we collect the information that's important to you and answer the questions for you. This informational session is another opportunity to provide information and to gather those public comments. But before we go any further, I'm going to turn it over to Colonel Gibson for any opening remarks.
Hey, thanks, Mike, and I appreciate your efforts to set all this up. So, team, I just have 4 quick points. First, I'd like to express my appreciation for the team's collaboration setting up these public sessions. That is hard work, and thanks to all of our partners who are supporting that effort. Second, I want to highlight the collaborative and constructive coordination across the federal agencies. Each bring unique ideas to this project, and we appreciate all of those unique perspectives. Third, it's important to recognize that while this is an authorized project, it is new. We remain encouraged with modern engineer solutions matching the development in the region, and so we want to hear for your feedback on this project. And last, my 4th point, I invite you to our public sessions really to meet and listen to your neighbors. It has to be collaborative. We want to provide the best engineer solutions to the need, and we can only do that if we hear from you. So I can't encourage enough your public engagement during our public comment period. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. All right. Talk a little bit about the rules of engagement on this. Need everyone to remember that this is a recorded meeting. So anything that is any of the videos or anything in the chat box will be recorded. It will be available to the public from the future. But please be aware that any phone numbers or email addresses will become part of the public record as well. All comments and questions should go into the chat box only. That'll help us just keep the tabs on everything, and we will answer them. Let's see, avoid spamming. So please keep the chat as much as possible down. We're also keeping the camera usage. Please keep your camera off. This is going to help us conserve a little bit of bandwidth, and we're going to keep the microphones muted. And finally, please be respectful in communication and courteous to others in the chat. Oh, one more thing, we're going to keep the chat box open approximately 10 minutes after the presentation, just if you had some more thoughts, so we'll leave that open for you. So why are we here? You know, it's a priority to provide effective flood risk solutions to the Yazoo Backwater area, and this is something that not only the Corps feels, but the interagency team as well. During this meeting, we'll be able to provide background on the proposed action, present the draft EIS, and we will receive some comments. We are expecting full participation. That is definitely encouraged. Comments will be received through August the 12th. Now on the screen right now, we have our public meeting schedule. Of course, you can see on the right side there, this is tonight's meeting that we're talking about. But on Monday, July the 22nd, we're going to have 3 sessions. We had a change of venue that happened earlier today. So we are now at the South Delta High School Gymnasium at 303 Parkway Street. First session will be at 10, second session at 2, the third session will be at 6 at night. On Tuesday, July 23rd, it'll be the same type of setup, except we'll be at the Vicksburg Auditorium in Vicksburg, Mississippi. Now, at the, at these public meetings, there's going to be comment cards that will be provided, so you can turn around and give it to us then, or they can be mailed in. The mailing address is right there on the slide, as well as the email address, if you want to just send us comments that way as well. So right now, the draft EIS is published and is available for public review and comment. The 45-day comment period ends on the 12th of August, and your comments, again, are welcome and encouraged. Once the period closes, the team will consider the comments and conduct further analysis if necessary. Responses to the comments will be included in the final EIS. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Robin Colodismo.
Thank you. Just a quick sound check. Can you hear me?
We got you.
Excellent. Well, thanks everybody for your participation tonight. It's really important, and it's an important juncture on this work. And so I just want to talk a little bit about how we've gotten here in the next few slides before turning it back to the district. First of all, my position, as it was mentioned, I'm the Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Army for Project Planning and Review, and I work in the Office of the Assistant Secretary of the Army for Civil Works. In this small office, we provide oversight of the entire Civil Works program that the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers carries out. And we particularly focus on things like Yazoo Backwater, where there are high priority efforts of an administration, and we work across the government with a whole government approach with our sister agencies. Today, I am representing my boss, Mr. Michael Connor, who's the Assistant Secretary of the Army for Civil Works. He's one of 6 Assistant Secretaries of the Army, and he is a Biden-Harris administration official. Overarchingly, today we approach an important juncture in our progressive interagency work that I want to reflect on with you. We are seeking collectively to resolve complex challenges for and with communities that are long overdue. And we have set the conditions for success through a variety of means I want to share with you. Next slide, please. The Yazoo backwater flooding has been a long-standing challenge. Many of you know this better than I. It's been recurring, and it has been the impetus for action. In particular, focus of this effort is finding implementable solutions among the implementing authorities the agencies involved have. That's a huge effort to navigate in this complex system. The most recent floods demonstrate the complexity and scope of impacts. 6 months of standing water in some places in that 2019 event, and these are just some of the short subsets of the impacts that we've heard about over time and witnessed. In 2020, we had additional flooding, and between those 2 events, they compelled action by the Biden-Harris administration. Next slide, please. Interagency collaboration really began in 2022. They started with listening sessions. Many of you perhaps participated in those sessions. I did as well. They involved 6 policy officials who came to the region to hear firsthand about the challenges and how solutions might be crafted. In 2023, we began that interagency work. DC and regional and district offices were all collaborating in real time. The focus was the community at large. And I will tell you personally, it's the most progressive collaboration in my career. Seeing people work real time, rolling up their sleeves, thinking about the challenges, taking down our boundaries, and hearing each other about the problems at hand and how we can weave our authorities together to deliver the things we've heard from the regions that they would like to see implemented. In my view, it's setting the new standard for interagency collaboration going forward. In 2024, we've released this draft EIS, and today is really about getting your input on all the things that are put forth with a goal towards getting towards the FEIS and hopefully a ROD as this process moves forward. Next slide. That substantive outreach is something unique in this situation. To date, we have had 14 engagement sessions, 9 public, 5 targeted based on certain audiences, and the issues raised here are the highlights that we heard. There were many powerful stories in addition. There were lots of ideas and concepts put forward that we are taking seriously and being reflected in this innovative approach. For me, the most important thing is I heard recurring floods were a big worry. No one wants to see the repeat of 6 months of standing water, which signaled, for many folks, the inaction of government. And frustration of a lack of collaboration among the agencies was a powerful message at the time. We heard, we listened, and we tried to shape this new agenda. Key issues were the issues are diverse and the trade-offs exist. And so how do we navigate those concepts with first listening, viewing good science and engineering, and partnering across the boundary? Next slide. Persistence areas of concern from prior plans that many of you all have probably voiced. Mitigation needs in terms of strategy and timing. Impacts to overburdened and underserved communities downstream. Impacts to functions and values of important floodplain wetlands. Impacts to endangered species and wetlands. And then the perceptions that pumps will only support agricultural production. Next slide, please. This slide, to me, is what the interagency process brought forward. This DEIS, the Draft Environmental Impact Statement, is an Army product informed by our cooperating agency partners of EPA and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. It focuses on a few important things: targeted water operations as a means to provide flood risk management reduction. The focus is on primary residences, infrastructure, associated roads, prime farmland, and the other items that are in this list. Encompassed in this is also, of course, fully mitigating for impacts before impact. And of course, fundamental to this process is not optimizing for one purpose, but thinking about the purposes in a way that we try and get the most from each operation that balances the needs without creating unacceptable impacts. Overarchingly, the DEIS is responsive to all the collective input we have heard. We are soliciting your comment in anything that occurs to you that we need to pay attention to. Of particular importance here is we have a preferred water management solution that gets at two scenarios, trying to think about the implications of those different scenarios in terms of their timing. Operational scenarios are really important for us to understand from your lens, as well as the buyouts and acquisition strategies and a number of other things. Between now and the FEIS, we want to hear from you, and we look forward to the engagement today, and we look forward to the engagements in the next 6 public sessions and working across the boundary to find craft solutions that can resolve these longstanding challenges. Next slide. And thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you, Robin. Now I'm going to turn it over to our H&H branch chief, Mr. Corey Winders.
Good evening, everybody. So I'm going to walk through just a high overview of the Yazoo Basin, the Backwater area, and kind of how that works. So the area we're focusing on is the southern part. The Yazoo Basin is located in the northwest part of the state of Mississippi. The illustration on the left of your screen is a really good illustration of how this system works. Kind of stepping through that, you have the Mississippi River levee on the west side there in kind of the brownish color. That provides flood protection from the Mississippi River. Then along the south side, you have the Yazoo Backwater levee, the Will Whittington levee, and then additional levees that extend up the east side, which provide flood protection from the Yazoo River and from the Mississippi River backwater when the Mississippi River gets high. You have still bayou and little sunflower structures that are highlighted there on the southern end. Those are the structures that are in place to drain the interior water from the backwater area. And so the bathtub effect we see is highlighted kind of with the bathtub there. So when the Mississippi River and the Yazoo River are lower than the interior and the lower end of the Yazoo Basin, those gates are open and water gravity flows out into the Yazoo River and thus the Mississippi River. When the Yazoo River and or Mississippi River backwater is higher than the interior, we have to close those gates to keep water from going into the backwater and causing flooding. So the problem arises when the Yazoo River or Mississippi River is high and we get, for a period of time, and we get a lot of interior rain that drains to the bottom of the south end of the Yazoo backwater. That's what causes the water to back up and the backwater flooding that occurs. So it's just a real quick overview of the area we're looking at and how that operates.
Thanks, Corey. Now we're going to turn it over to Mr. Brandon Davis with our planning division. Brandon?
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Can you hear me, Mike? Okay.
Yeah, we got you.
Okay, good. All right. Well, thank you, guys. Thank you all for being here. A good crowd tonight. We really appreciate that. As Mike said, my name's Brandon Davis. I'm your planning lead here at the Vicksburg District. Before we get started on the planning objectives, I really want to set the table on a couple of things to maybe kind of, as we walk through this, you'll consider it. So our project delivery team was charged with providing an analysis of potential alternatives for the Assistant Secretary of the Army to make an informed decision. And with also that we are a risk-informed planning, going through a risk-informed planning process when we are working through this analysis. Well, what does that all mean? Well, it means that as far as risk-informed goes, that we plan based on the best available data that we have through scientific analysis, and there may be updates that we have to make as more information becomes available to us. But I think the key thing is that agencies, with our sister agencies, federal agencies, we're vertically aligned on the current analysis that we have, and just wanted to point those two things out to you. As far as the planning objectives go, as you can see, we have a few listed here. The biggest one, obviously, is reducing damages associated with backwater flooding for our urban areas, our rural areas, and also agricultural production areas. Reduction of the risk to agriculture and also associated costs with the intensification that we see after flooding. Reduce the adverse effects to our environmental impacts, and then also mitigation secured prior to the project being impacted. Next slide. Okay, so what is a measure? Before we get into that, a measure is a feature or an activity that we can implement to address one or more of the planning objectives that we had just talked about. And they can be structural or they can be non-structural. So really what a measure is like a building block to our alternatives that we are putting together or considering for this project. And just looking through these really quickly, you can see various measures that we've considered: pump location, the operation elevation we'll talk about momentarily, upper and lower bounds on that as far as the elevations go. Seasonal pump operations tied to crop seasons, pumping capacities. Also look at low flow, adding low flow wells and local protections, ring levees, and then non-structural measures, as you can see down through there, elevating of structures, relocation and acquisition of structures as well. Next slide. So the final array of alternatives that we came up with based off the measures. So the first is a no action per ER 1105-2-103. The no action alternative we always have to consider on any alternative that any project that we look at. So that's going to be included in our array of analysis. And then we have a couple of other water management solutions, two operational scenarios, as you can see there. Alternative 2 is a crop season. Crop seasons being from 16 March to 15 October, and you can see the non-crop season that coincides with that. And then the other alternative is a crop season, alternative 3, a crop season beginning in March 25th through October 15th, and you can see the non-crop season that we have coincided with that as well. 34 low flow groundwater wells in the upper basin. That's going to supplement low flows during drought conditions, which is very important. And then we have some limited non-structural measures to reduce flood risk below the 90-foot and 93-foot elevation. You can see those there. And then we have alternative 4, which are non-structural plan only, some voluntary acquisitions of structures based on the recent historical floodplain from 2019, and also some voluntary acquisition of cleared lands, as you can see there. So these are our 4 alternatives that are being considered, that are being sent forward to Secretary Connor's office for consideration. Next slide. So this slide here, it looks at the proposed water management solution that was developed through a very impressive interagency process. We said very impressed of how agencies were able to come together here for this plan. And if you look at it, managing the backwater flooding through seasons, the 5-year floodplain during non-crop season, if you can look on the map here, it may be difficult for you to see, but that's what you see in pink. That's estimated 93 feet. Pumping initiated to hold water at the 93 elevation. Then you look at the 2-year floodplain during crop season, which would be in the light blue area. It's around 90 feet, and it's initiating to hold water at the 90 elevation. We talked about the 2 operational scenarios, an alternative 2 and alternative 3 based on crop seasons, as you can see there in the slides. And also other ways to manage water levels. We include adjusting the water control manual for still value drainage structure, and obviously a 25,000 CFS pumping station. Next slide. So I think one of the misconceptions is that these pumps would stay on year-round, 24/7. That's really not the case. I wanted to point out to you, if you look at the graph or the table on the right side, hypothetical historical pumping durations, that is a period of record of 41 years from 1979 to 2020. And if you look at alternative 2 there, the crop season from March 16th through October 15th, and then you also look at alternative 3 there, the crop season there, that is the average on the mean there, 39 days. So on average, you would expect the pumps to be on around 39 days during the historical season, the 41 years that you see there. So you can see it's 39 days for alternative 2 and 30 days for the alternative 3. Really, we thought it was important to point out that these pumps, this is not a pump that we kick on and we leave on 24/7. So wanted to provide some real data to show that claim. Next slide. All right, so our proposed mitigation, the compensatory mitigation secured prior to project impacts, and what are some other ways that we can mitigate to fulfill our needs? One could be purchasing credits through in lieu fee program, purchasing credits through mitigation banks located throughout the Yazoo study area, and then also construction of Yazoo-specific mitigation by the Corps of Engineers for any remaining acres that we have on this project. Next slide. All right, so very good coordination has already been taking place with our NEPA, and this right here is just some of the overview that falls underneath the NEPA umbrella. First thing is obviously Section 7, Endangered Species Act. We said great coordination and collaboration with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Biological assessment is being finalized for the pondberry and being sent to the service to initiate formal consultation. As far as Section 106 goes, a programmatic agreement is being developed and will be finalized once we know a selected alternative. So a programmatic agreement for Section 106 really is plan laying out what, if we identify impacts, laying out a plan of how we would take care of that and if we have to mitigate. So something very important that is currently being worked through right now. There was an initial kickoff meeting held with tribal nations and the State Historic Preservation Office on 3 July, and a virtual meeting is scheduled for early August of 2024. So that coordination is currently ongoing. And then finally, on Section 404, you can see we've had great coordination ongoing with the Corps of Engineers and EPA on the 404B1 analysis. That draft 404B1 has been included for public review in the developed draft. Yes, and obviously we're coordinating with the state of Mississippi on the ongoing water quality certification that's required. So I believe that is all of my slides. Again, I want to thank you for being on tonight, and hopefully we'll be able to meet with you next week for the in-person meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon. All right, so where are we? Well, as we had mentioned before, the public review is ongoing right now to end on August the 12th. After that time, we will start to address the public comments and finalize the EIS. Between October and December of this calendar year, we anticipate to have a delivery of a final EIS, the notice of availability, the final secretary determination, and finally the record of decision. And with that, that concludes our presentation tonight. I appreciate everybody jumping on board. We're gonna keep the chat box open right now for a little bit, and probably about 10 minutes. And, sir, any closing comments?
So the only closing comment I would add would be, again, I encourage all participation to come out in the in-person sessions, and then we look forward to seeing you. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. We got about 2 more minutes, so go ahead and get your comments in. And then, as you can see on the screen, there's other ways to send in comments if you'd like. So, 2 more minutes. And lastly, I just want to remind everybody to help us spread the word that we will not be at the elementary school in Rolling Fork. We will be at the high school gymnasium now. Yeah, on Monday. And keep in mind that the high schoolers are going to Anguilla. They're not at Rolling Fork, but it's still going to be at the old gymnasium in Rolling Fork. With that, I'm on one last chance for any of the presenters. Any closing comments?
This is Robin Polisino. I just want to thank everybody for their participation and look forward to more engagement on the landscape.
And this is Colonel Gibson. I'll echo those comments and look forward to seeing our Vicksburg partners out in your project space. See you next week.
All right. Thanks, everyone.